Husbands, do you want to be the spiritual head over your household? Do you struggle to know what to do? Well, if that's you, then you're definitely not alone. We are here today. I'm happy to tell you there is a way to figure this out. We're going to talk about that together. So I want you to stick around to the very end of this episode because I've got a lot of powerful things that I'm going to share with you about how to be the spiritual head of your household. These are going to be things you're going to want to implement. These are going to be things that you're going to be able to do today after you listen to this episode and watch this video. But before I jump in, I want to make sure that you like, follow, and subscribe wherever you are watching or listening to this. We'll definitely help you get all of our great content at lovehowdeep.com and help you stay abreast of what we got. Now, if you are a man and you are watching this, I can almost guarantee there's a struggle to figure out how to be the spiritual head of the household. And there's probably lots of reasons for that. I mean, if you go back to childhood, maybe you grew up in a household where, maybe you were void of going to church. Maybe there was no such thing as that. Maybe you did. Maybe it was a situation like me when I was growing up, my younger childhood, where it was a stepmother that found it important to go to church. And my dad really wasn't into that. And later on, later years, he certainly was. But maybe that's a situation that you grew up in, where you had, again, it was kind of flipped as far as who was the spiritual head of the household. I would definitely say in my younger childhood, it was definitely my stepmother. And they say there's a statistic out there that talks about how, exponentially speaking, it's so much greater that when a father attends church, the children go to church and the children will attend church later in life. It's much less when it's the mom. When it's the mom that's the one doing it. And so it's just kind of a fact of life that's just the way it is, that there's something about when a man, the male role model in the home, the father, attends church, finds that to be incredibly important, that it's really instilled upon the children that it's important. So if nothing else, I would definitely tell you that do it for your children. But the most powerful thing that you can do to start off with, and it's very easy, it's very simple. A lot of men get this wrong, but it's prayer. And the reason they get it wrong is because they think it's so much more than it needs to be. It doesn't. It can be something very simple. Really, all prayer is it's basically our way, our human way of communicating with God. And He wants us, of course, to talk to Him informally as if we're a friend. But He also wants us to talk with Him a little bit more formally, which would be something like prayer. And if you're at all self conscious, I know lots of men are, lots of men don't like to pray in front of other people. You don't have to. God's word talks about how He wants you to go in your secret place and pray. And the one thing that I love to do, I love to go into, I mean, they call it a prayer closet. And that's exactly what I have at home. I've got a closet. And the thing that I love about it is the sound is just dead in there, and it feels very kind of comforting, inviting. You might want to do it with the light off. A lot of times I just do it with the lights off, because I think it helps me not be distracted. Although there's not much in a closet that you can be distracted by, clothing, I suppose. But there's just something about having the lights off that creates less of a distraction. And then it's simply all about just you communicating with God. And I would ask you specifically, talk to Him about, help with being the spiritual head of the home. If you don't know how to do it, ask Him for help, ask Him for wisdom, ask Him for guidance. He will certainly give it to you. He does in His word talk about how He will give it more abundantly than you ask. So He will give it to you above and beyond what you're thinking. And when it comes to prayer, you don't have to be eloquent. You don't have to use flowery language with God. Just talk to Him like you'd be talking to your friend. That's all He really expects. He doesn't need anything above and beyond that. And there's times where I'll be honest, sometimes I don't even know what to say, and I just want to be honest with God and say, God, I don't really know what to say right now, but I think you know what's on my heart. You know where I'm coming from. help me with that. And if you struggle to speak in front of others, I've had lots of male friends that have told me they even just struggle to pray, out loud in front of other people. Well, that's another thing. You just ask God for help with that when it comes to that. And then if you once you kind of graduate, I like to call it, from praying by yourself and praying in secret, then ask people that you're close to, say, hey, I would love to be able to kind of practice being able to prayer. I want to do it in a safe place where I don't feel judged. Would you be okay if I prayed? And again, just start to pray. And you're going to have those moments. I have them all the time still, where you pray and you just think, well, that sounded stupid, or I don't even know what to pray. Or I've prayed before and I'm really going well, and then all of a sudden I run out of steam. Or you've probably had some of those situations where you've maybe been praying and you get in your head a little bit, and you forget what you're saying, or where am I heading with this? And again, all of that is okay. Basically, what I'm trying to tell you is just try. If you, and I don't even want to say the word failure, because that's not what this is about. It's really just about learning, it's about growing. And the goal really is to just do it, just to start. And if I would say probably the kind of what you want to measure things by is, don't compare yourself to other people. Don't compare yourself to evangelists and pastors and others that are better at it, quote unquote. Really, what you want to do is, am I better than I was yesterday? I mean, that's the whole goal. God wants us just to continue to get better, continue to work on things. And if you can do that, if you can stay consistent, you will see growth in your prayer life. I guarantee it. And then once you've, again, prayed on your own, once you've prayed with somebody that you feel comfortable with, that you trust, maybe that's your spouse, maybe that's a friend, start to pray for other people. And I would encourage you to get out of this mode of saying, if somebody talks to you about something that they're struggling with, or maybe they've got an illness, our tendency is to say, well, I'll make sure I pray with you for that. But I guarantee you, if you're like me, what ends up happening is you completely forget about it. You go on about your day and you don't even think again about it. And that's not good. What's extremely powerful is if you can say, you know what, let's just pray about this right now. And again, it doesn't have to be flowery language. It doesn't have to be anything extraordinary. It can just be something simple. God, please bless my brother. He's struggling with his health right now. I pray that you would heal him from what's going on. And we pray all these things in Jesus' name. I mean, it could be something as simple as that. And I've been told by other people that when they are on the receiving end of a prayer like that, to know that somebody cares about them that deeply, to want to be able to do something like that, even just so simple. It's simple yet powerful. And if you can do that, that will set you off on a course to be the spiritual head of your home. I think a lot of people get confused by being the spiritual head of the household, and they think that, oh, now everything is kind of on me. I'm the one that needs to make all the decisions. And that's not really true. You need to become unified with your wife and kind of be on the same page. And that's not always going to happen. But I would say that's where prayer comes in as well. Pray about things. If you're not on the same page with your wife, if you really truly do feel like there's a direction from God that you have been given, and you present that to your wife and she's resistant, then just ask her if she would pray about it. And if there's time and it's not an urgent, immediate decision that needs to be made, just say, you know what? I'm going to pray about this on my own in my prayer closet, but I also want the two of us to pray. And my goal, at least in my marriage, I will tell you, is my ultimate goal is I want to be unified with my wife. That's what I want to come out of this. Now, again, maybe there's a time where you really, truly feel led by God to make a decision, to do something that He is calling you to do. what I want you to do in those cases is, again, continue to pray about it, continue to pray with your wife. But if you, beyond a shadow of a doubt, truly believe that He is calling you to do this, sit your wife down, talk to her about it, tell her that this is what I believe God is saying. I would not be saying this to you if I didn't believe it, because you need to be careful about manipulation and about a situation where it looks like you're trying to control. You need to be very careful about that, because that's where this can go haywire. I had somebody once tell me that they really truly believe that being the spiritual head of the household means I'm responsible to make all of the decisions and my wife just needs to go along with those. And maybe there's some people that translate what the Bible talks about in that way. I don't. I don't prescribe to that. Again, I believe that there does need to be a unity, but you've got an incredible opportunity to change the direction of your family. Becoming the spiritual head of the household, it's not easy, but it's pretty amazing. And when it works and when you do it, it it's incredible. And I will say, I do truly believe I'm the spiritual head of my household. We're empty nesters now, so it's a little bit easier. It's just my wife and I having to coordinate and talk through things. If you've got kids, I know that makes it a lot tougher, because they're constantly, they've got different ideas, different ways of thinking. And if you've got teenagers, we all know how that goes. All of a sudden, when you become a teenager, you think you've got it all figured out. And that's not easy to be strong and to guide your family in the way that you would that He would have you guide them. But keep at it, be consistent. And again, a good leader, I really believe, shepherds his family, kind of like Jesus shepherds his flock, with gentleness, firmness, but with gentleness, with love and care and kindness. Those are all important if you want to be the spiritual head of your household. I heard something interesting the other day when it comes to social media influencers, and somebody said, you'll never be an influencer if people don't like you. And I know there's this other argument that say people, well, I don't need people to like me. Again, I kind of disagree with that. I really don't feel like you're going to get anybody to follow you if they don't like you. I mean, that's just my opinion. And yes, the decisions that you make, the things that you say, maybe aren't always going to be liked by friends, family, kids, whatever, but they genuinely have to like you. Again, it's okay if occasionally they don't like something you say. Of course, that's not the problem, but you generally have to be liked. And so you need to be careful of that. And so you don't want to domineer. You don't want to lord over your spouse and your kids. The Bible talks a lot about don't exasperate your children. Don't be constantly angry with them. That's just going to turn them off. And again, it's okay. I get it. Every once in a while, we've got to be that way. But in order to be the spiritual head of your household, again, you want to be a servant leader. So you're constantly looking for opportunities to serve. Maybe it's a situation where, again, maybe your teenager needs some advice. Well, approach it from not as much a place of preaching, but a place of first listening, and then simply asking them, what is their opinion? What do they think should be done? And then if you can tell that it's off track, off base, off course, then by all means give some input on how this should go. And because we don't want our kids to purposefully or unintentionally run into the ditch. Nobody wants that. So again, we have to look at the situation there. Do we allow them to kind of spread their wings and fly, so to speak, a little bit, and then hit some bumps in the road and maybe land with a thud occasionally? Maybe that's not so bad. But again, do we want them to completely run off the rails and almost ruin their life? No, of course we don't want that. So you got to use judgment when it comes to that. But again, it's all about being a servant, being there when they need you. And again, totally get it. Teenagers don't always want their parents there. They don't always want them to be their teenagers are typically trying to break free, trying to break away, trying to exert their independence, trying to understand the world, and they're not always going to want you there. But if you can make yourself available, it can be really good. I heard once, when it comes to a marriage, and I think this can apply to kids too, you want to be available, responsive, and engaged with your spouse and with your kids. When it comes to availability, I look at it as like, let's say you're the boss and you're at work and you're in your office, and availability just means my door's open. You can always come in. If you need something, I want you to be able to come in and talk to me. That's availability. Responsiveness is like, how do I treat you when you come in to my office? Do I put aside the thing that I'm working on? Do I give you my full attention? Do I look you in the eyes when you're talking to me? Do I give full weight to what you're asking about? Do I not dismiss you immediately? That's responsiveness. And then engagement is more about, you know what, I'm going to walk alongside of you as you go through this. So maybe it's, again, your spouse comes to you and is just devastated by something that a friend did. Engagement would be, you know what, I'm going to put aside what I've got to work on today, and let's go out to lunch and let's talk about this thing. And then you're being empathetic and you're listening and you're encouraging and maybe occasionally offering some words of wisdom. So each of those layers get deeper and deeper. So again, accessibility, responsiveness, engagement, or I guess the A, you could say availability. But as you're going through those, each of them kind of gets deeper and deeper emotionally speaking. Because I had, I worked in the corporate world for a long time, and I'll never forget, I had a boss that was going through some tough stuff, and he kind of put his hand up and just told me that he didn't want to hear about it. And it was, again, something personally I was going through, and talk about not being available or accessible. He didn't even get to the first level with me. And so that sort of stuck with me over time. And then I realized, at some point, not really the kind of person that I want to work with. And so eventually left that. And again, you can argue that, okay, maybe personally speaking, you don't want to talk a lot about things going on at home because you're at work for a reason, but we carry ourselves into work. So I'm probably going off on a tangent here a little bit with this, but I guess to circle back around, the point of all this is I want you as a husband, as the spiritual head of your household, to be accessible, responsive, and engaged with your family, and continue to work on those things. And if you do that, it won't always be easy. You can't really control what others do, but it can be effective. If you're not in a good church, find a good church to go to. Surround yourself with other people, other believers. Get encouragement. You may or may not have heard the verse that talks about iron sharpens iron, basically meaning that if we're around other people and we all kind of have the same goal, we're all looking at the same thing, which is the Lord, then it can strengthen us. It can encourage us, you as the spiritual head of the household, in order to be able to do things the right way. And again, sometimes, occasionally, it's always good to get some constructive feedback. I mean, they call that, I guess in the Bible, they call that rebuking. That maybe, hey, you're getting off track here. You're not doing the right thing. Sometimes we need other people to speak into our lives. And so that is also very important to do. If you do these things, I do believe it will set you off on a course to be the spiritual head of your household, which is what God desires for you as a husband. So it's not about being passive, which I know we men can have a tendency to be passive. I know I'm generalizing and stereotyping, but men, for whatever reason, even though we're called to be the spiritual leader, we're called to be assertive, we tend to be more passive. And I find this with so many men that I work with, that it's just all about, I just want my life to be simple. I want it to be easy. And, it's the wife, it's the one that's coming in and taking care of the kids and handling dinner and cleaning and this and that and the other. And they just become exhausted. And so we as men need to step up and help take care of some of those things, and stop using the excuse that, well, I work outside the home, or I travel a lot for work, and so I'm exhausted when I get home and I just don't want to do these things. I'm not parental by nature. I don't have the motherly instincts that my wife has, so to speak. You don't have to have all that. You don't have to be Superman. You just have to do a little bit. And I would encourage you, be proactive. Don't wait around for your wife to ask you to do something. Just do it. And then if you feel like she doesn't see it, you can go tell her. I know we're often told, as Christians, be humble, don't be boastful, but it's okay to say, you know what? I normally don't do the laundry, but I tell you what, I noticed that it was starting to get a little out of hand, so I went ahead and threw a load in, and then I'm going to dry it. I'm going to fold it up. And again, it's just something small. And if you can start to do those things, because that's the other thing that I hear a lot of women tell me and tell Heather, is that they don't want to have to tell their husbands. They want their husbands to be able to read the room. And that's extremely hard for us men. I don't think it's as hard as we make it out to be. It really is very simple. It's something that you have to be mindful about. What mindfulness is it's simply just looking around, just again reading the room. What am I noticing here? I will tell you, and I'm maybe better at this than I used to be, is reading my wife's facial expressions. Now, sometimes I get it wrong. Sometimes I make an assumption that's incorrect, like, oh, she looks mad, or whatever, when maybe she's just exhausted. And that's my chance, my opportunity to go to her again as the spiritual head of the household and say, are you exhausted? What can I take off your plate? What can I do to help you to make sure that you don't completely burn out? Again, it's just that being proactive. And again, you don't have to do it. You don't have to be a superhero. I've never talked to one woman that's ever said to me, yeah, I want my husband to be a superhero. I want him to do everything. I want him to be on 24/7. No, that's not what I hear. And of course, it's not reasonable. I think women, again, typically just want to see a few things. That's all. But when they're not getting anything, that's where they can tend to be critical. And if you're getting a lot of criticism, it's okay to say, hey, the criticism doesn't help me. It doesn't encourage me. It doesn't lift me up. If you could, encourage me and give me kind words, I promise you that would really help me. And so it's okay to say that to her. That's what you need. It's all right. Again, you don't have to be Superman. So just remember that as well, because that can go a long way too. Again, just being proactive with what you're doing, helping others, modeling for your family and your kids, and make sure you don't do it. They always talk about, on an airplane, make sure you wear your own mask first, put on your own mask first before you put on somebody else's mask. The whole point of that is make sure that you are focused on your kids, you are focused on your family before you take the leap to help other people. I know I talked to a friend just the other week. He said his marriage was not in a good place when he was younger because he was just doing too much. And he thought he was doing a good thing. I'm out helping other people. I'm helping people that are whatever it was. I can't remember the specifics that he was doing, but he was just constantly on the go and always working to help others, and not realizing his wife is at home just exhausted. And I think she came to him one night and was just bawling and said, look, I'm exhausted over here. I need your help. And I don't know if she said, it's going to be divorce if something doesn't change. It might have been. And so he realized then and there, it was like a wake up call, like a light bulb went off. And it was like an aha moment for him to realize that, wow, I know God calls us to help others, but I got to make sure my home is in order first. But if that's the case, if it's in order, talk to your wife about maybe some things that you want to do to help other people. I don't, whatever it might be, all kinds of different ideas that you can do. And then, bring your kids along when you're doing these types of things. Like, show them what it's like to work at a soup kitchen, or maybe go to a hospital and read, books to children that aren't doing well. Show them what that's like, and I guarantee you, when they grow up, they will remember that. Now, whether or not they do something with it, of course, that's not for you to concern yourself with, but it's all about planting those seeds for your kids. And so that's what you want to do in order to model, is just getting out there, helping other people. And so I hope all of this has helped you. I hope this has given you some ideas to being the spiritual head of your household. Really, my call to action to you is to think about this, pray about this. Also, want to ask you to pick up our communication strategies workbook. If you're unsure about how to approach your wife about some of these things, we got an awesome workbook. I'm going to put a link wherever you are hearing this or seeing this video, and you can pick up that, and then you can have to start to have some conversations. There's some talk about prayer in that workbook, so I think it's going to be really helpful to you, and I can't wait to see how this all works out for you, because we need more men as spiritual leaders of our home, don't we? I know you agree with that. So let's get off the lazy boy, let's get off our tushes, and let's go do something. All right. Thanks so much for watching and listening. Take care until next time.